My name is Jeremy Wolf, co-founder of More Than Baseball, and you're listening to The Grind, our podcast about the lives, lessons, and journeys of professional baseball players. Today's episode is with Emily Waldon.
My name is Emily Waldon, and I work as a national prospect writer for The Athletic. And I also cover the Detroit Tigers farm system from top to bottom for Baseball America.
Words can't begin to describe how much Emily Waldon means to us. She's been there since the very beginning. Like a podcast she did with me and Simon Rosenblum Larson back in March of 2019, almost 2 years ago now, and 3 years into More Than Baseball. Since then, she's done piece after piece on the struggles of minor leaguers for The Athletic, and has even helped find work for a handful of minor leaguers at the early stages of the pandemic. The game needs more people like her, honest, open, and not afraid of speaking their minds and speaking truth to power. The game is better with her in it. It's important to see baseball in this way, not just as a game or entertainment, but as a place that builds community, a place that includes all shapes and sizes. The game doesn't care who you are. The game will just chew you up and spit you out if you're not ready for what it throws at you. And luckily, in our case, Emily has found her voice and displays it loudly and proudly for the world to hear. This podcast is built for a few types of people. Sure, the baseball fan. You could say high school and college ball players too, but I think we've found something wonderful here. We're using this place to tell stories of everyone's journey in the game, not just ball players or coaches, but those who have dedicated their lives to putting pen to paper and documenting the untold stories this game has to offer. So here's to Emily, and here's to those who are motivated by what she's doing for the game of baseball. Here's episode 10 of The Grind with Emily Waldon.
And I wanna go to sleep well fed.
Perfect, thank you. And I'll be honest with you, I'm a little nervous. I'm a
Why?
really big fan. I'm a really big fan of you, and I'm a really big fan of what you write. And you interviewed Simon and I 2 years ago on the Fangraphs podcast.
Has that been 2 years
2
already?
years.
Holy
And
cow.
it was because of that interview that really set the ball rolling on the idea of More Than Baseball.
Oh my goodness, you're going to make me cry.
So
Aw.
it's because of Garrett and all the work that he's done, and then Advocates, which I know you're working with now. We're just doing stuff with them.
Yeah.
I'd love to get into what they're doing.
Yeah.
But then the stuff that you've been doing with all minor leaguers, and it just putting a spotlight on what we do is unbelievably important. So I can't thank you
Yeah.
enough. And Ken Rosenthal's been a big
Yeah.
help, and Alec Lewis, and all the writers.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure because it's the work that's being done needs a platform, and I think it's just part of the ongoing process of how little people actually know about what goes on behind the scenes in the minor league industry. And I know that's what was kind of the driving force behind what I started to do, and just seeing the same passion in other people really sort of fueled a fire to inspire me to keep going and see what else we could do. So the work that's being done with, you guys, with Advocates, with all of these guys, it's a kind of a universal mindset that we want to see change. And I think that fact is really what drives me, because it's all such a group effort that we're really just helping each other out, and we're ultimately helping these guys out. And I think that's really the big picture of what we're all shooting for.
Was there something that you saw, working your way up, I guess, through the minor leagues as well, like these guys? Is there something that you saw, or was it just the constant stream of negativity towards minor leaguers, or the environment that just kind of motivates you to be part of this change?
Yeah, I think it was kind of a gradual realization of what the industry was actually all about, because admittedly, when I first started, I really didn't have knowledge of the minor league industry per se. I knew baseball. That went without saying. I grew up around the game. It was my family's life for years and years and years. And so that was really a comfort zone for me. But I think as I sort of became steeped in the lifestyle, hearing the stories of the players, coaches, scouts, family members, all of these different people involved in it, you kind of started to realize, wow, this is really a lifestyle that's not getting much airtime, if you will, and starting to see more of the facets of it and more of how broad and how great the challenges were that these guys were facing. That was really something that pushed me to say, in order for people to understand the industry and to understand and appreciate minor league baseball, you have to know the full scope. You have to know the full story. And seeing what these guys went through and hearing their stories really kind of allowed me to have that opportunity to use my platform to shed light on it, not to necessarily give baseball a black eye, but to more so shed light on the reality and say, if you're going to attend these games, you need to know these players inside and out from top to bottom on the field and off the field. Because I think we all talk about how minor league baseball is so much more of a personal industry than the majors. The majors have the players so far withdrawn from the fans. There's far less access. But in the minor leagues, you have so much more of an intimate approach with the players, to where you could have Fernando Tatis Jr. up along one of the railings signing baseballs for 30, 40 people. And there's no security around him. He's there and he's present. And I think when you are able to get that close to the players, you understand their lifestyle, it gives you that much more of an appreciation for when they do ultimately make it to the majors. And it just builds that bond between the player and the fan base, in my opinion.
When I talk to players, we do it all the time. We have 2,000 players in our system now. I talk with Simon, Rosenblum Larson and Slade Heathcott every day, and they're talking to guys, and what it seems like things are getting better. MLB just absorbed MILB. Major League Baseball did away with clubhouse dues, but it's still not there yet, right? I still have to do work at More Than Baseball. Garrett and Ty and Matt and the team has to do stuff at MILB Advocates, right? Do you see things getting better slowly, or do you see things kind of stagnating and just waiting for the next thing to come? Because teams are getting cut, players are getting cut. I want to know, like, what you think the state of minor league baseball is now, as opposed to, 4, 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah, it's really an interesting thing to think about, because I would agree with you that certain things are seeing a bit of an upswing, which is encouraging. I know that when the Blue Jays came out and confirmed to Ken Rosenthal and I that they plan to do a raise in player pay, that was pretty cutting edge, in my opinion, because I know a lot of teams had sort of tossed it out there that, yeah, we're going to consider this. But I've always told people it's really only going to take one team to kind of start that domino effect or that snowball effect, because nobody wants to be the last team to hold out on their players. Nobody wants to be that group that is going to be stingy or not want to shell out the money. And I think the biggest issue, in my opinion, is the fact that when these players sign a contract, they become a professional athlete. They become someone who's so specialized in their field that they've been able to sign on with a professional organization, albeit at the lower level, to eventually work their way up. But one organization said, you are skilled enough to where we want you to wear our uniform. And the thing that always struck me was that they receive that much specialization in their field, yet they're being paid so poorly. And I think once that domino effect really starts to come into play, and you start to see more organizations step up and say, we're not going to fight tooth and nail to give you, that extra $400 a week, how we kind of saw that play out during COVID, that the teams will actually be inspired and say, if you're in our organization, we're going to treat you as our own. It's not going to make a difference what level you played at last year. It's not going to make a difference if you were a first round pick or a fifth round pick. It's really something that I think will speak very highly of the leadership around the different organizations to show how they approach these players. And I think it really starts with pay. You have to see that improvement to be able to give these guys a shot at a real life that they can focus on training in a proper way, that they can continue to hone their craft and work to be the best. And until we see that happen across the league, I think there's still a lot of work to be done.
That's kind of a major thing that we kind of fight with is, do we, on social media, on, with our fans and donors, do we argue for a higher wage, or do we argue for the bare necessities to enable these guys to be able to focus on playing? I think Garrett and Advocates has done an incredible job, like talking about pay and showing the importance of paying these guys more and what that's going to do ultimately for player development. I think we do a really good job with relaying why helping a kid get a mattress is important, right? Helping a kid get housing and food and equipment, career services, financial guidance, mental health coaching. Why, in your opinion, why don't teams do more in-house? Is it they don't have the resources, the need, the desire, they don't want to spend the money, or do they just want to focus on the 5 first rounders and get them to the big leagues?
I'm sure that you are very familiar with the term of the prospects and then the guys who were assigned to play catch with the prospects. That is very, very common across the industry. And the players who are not viewed as quote unquote the prospects, they're aware of that distinguishing. They're aware of the players who are going to get priority. They're going to get more attention. That's just the way that it goes, because they obviously received a larger investment from the organization. As far as your question goes, I think it's a yes across the board to a certain degree, because I think one of the most underrated aspects of minor league baseball, and this is especially true in the international market, is how vital mental health is for these guys. You look at players from Venezuela, you look at players from the Dominican, you look at guys who come in even from Mexico. Some of them are 17 years old, some of them 16 years old, and they're looking at a brand new culture. And then they're also looking at this task of having to stay at the top of their employment, so to speak. And if you have even the smallest, like you said, bare necessities, that's one less thing they have to think about. That's one less stress on their mind, where they're also having to adapt to this brand new culture. Many of them can't speak the language. They're living with a host family, hopefully, or within a team hotel of some kind. And it really factors into the development, like you said, because the mental side of it, and we can go into the joys of sleeping on a bus, or all the different things that factor into road trips. Being mentally sharp is what's going to set you apart. And I think from a player development perspective, you have to factor that in if you want to see your guys get the most that they can get out of this opportunity you've presented them. Because at the end of the day, you've paid them something, whether it was a first round pick or whether it was a 15th round pick, you paid them something out of your pockets. And if I were in that position as a general manager or somewhere in the front office, I would say, how much can we get from these guys? Because how many times have you seen a lower level round pick come out and have an incredible career? Just blew expectations out of the water. It is possible. You are not necessarily the round you were selected, but in order to see what you're fully capable of, I believe organizations need to set their guys up for success to whatever degree that would mean for them, whether it be more pay or whether they say, you know what, the position that we're in right now, here's what we can do for you. We wish we could do more. Hopefully we can do more, but this is our gesture to say that you're part of us and we're acknowledging that you're here. So I think it really just comes down to what the front offices believe is necessary for their guys to see that they're valued, and then they just need to go about that process to make it happen.
If everything was perfect, right? If guys were getting a livable wage, between, I think Garrett was arguing, I think that group was arguing for, $15,000 a year. But say MLB turns the tides and go, okay, we're going to give everybody a livable wage between $28,000 and $30,000 a year. What sort of improvements would teams see in their player development from the top, from the bottom up? Would they see overall improvement, in your opinion, in how these guys are playing and living and sleeping and performing?
Oh,
Uh,
I definitely do. Yeah, I definitely do. And I think another facet of this also comes into how long are they being paid through the year? Would there be a benefit of maybe not necessarily a huge pay increase, but what happens if you pay them something year round? How much more time do they have in the off season to train properly? How much more time do they have in the off season to focus on other things rather than working 2 or 3 jobs to put money aside? That to me is another perspective that you could put in the mix. And I think from the mental side, from the real life side, you factor in the guys who have a wife and kids at the higher levels. There's so many things that these organizations could do that would take the pressure off of the players. And I think by doing that, you build a healthy farm system, you see a healthy future for that organization.
in your opinion, is there a team that does it best?
That's an excellent question. I think that there are teams that approach it differently. And I don't know if I would necessarily say someone does it the best, but I know several. I kind of like to gauge it off of the way the players describe it, because the players they're in the mix. They're, seeing it day to day. They're seeing the attention they're getting. They're seeing how things are run. And I know two organizations specifically who the players have said really, really kind things about are the Dodgers and also the Indians. The Dodgers specifically stood out to me because when we were having the discussions about proper nutrition, which was something I focused on when I first wrote my initial article about minor league lifestyle. Since then, the Dodgers have taken strides to have more nutritionists available, specifically at the lower levels, because I know you can probably attest to this too. When you're at that low A, high A level, it's not great. It's really not great. Guys would say once I got to double A, up to triple A, it was a night and day difference when it comes to food. You saw better meals, better options, better health options, just really a stark difference from the lower levels. And with the Dodgers specifically, they've been focusing on the rookie ball guys. They've been focusing on the low A guys because they understand it's just as valuable down there. You can't call a guy valuable once he hits AAA. He's valuable as soon as he signs that contract. And I think by doing what the Dodgers have done is really a valuable way for them to show, look, we want to see an improvement. We want to invest in these guys properly. And with the Indians, seeing what they've done to have people available to work with the players just on the personal life standpoint. I know they have kind of lifestyle coaches. Shout out to Jen Wolf, who is absolutely a rock
The
star, and
best, the
she
best in the
is.
business.
I will sing her praises all day long, and I hope she hears this because she'll just crack up laughing. But she is somebody who I have so much admiration for, because not only does she care about the player development side, but she also understands the importance of helping these guys get life skills, helping them with proper tax paperwork, which we saw the challenges of filing taxes during COVID. How do you file for that? How do you file for unemployment? There's so many things that these guys start so young in the business. They don't have the time to learn them. They're not with their parents. Some of them are across the country from their parents, and maybe they'd never had that opportunity to learn. So looking at a club like the Indians, they're factoring in the big picture. They're focusing on player development, but they're also saying we're going to focus on personal development as well. And I think Jen is at the forefront of that, not only as a woman in baseball, which gets me so excited, but she's really playing such an amazing role within the total development of these guys in the organization.
That's what we've heard too, is those two teams, is the Indians, the Dodgers. I'll throw the Brewers in there as well. Who it's really interesting to talk to different organizations about what they're doing for their players, and talk to players in that organization and kind of hear the similarities in what they're saying and then the differences. I will note that Jen, I was with her on the Mets, and when Jen came to town, food was better. The environment was better. She made sure that guys got what they needed, and to see like the success that she's had with the Indians, it's really phenomenal. I'm really happy that I get to have these conversations with baseball people like yourself, but like with Jen, who, and I can't, off the top of my head, I don't know if there's anybody who has that similar position across baseball. I could be wrong, but
I know.
yeah.
Yeah, I know that there are other, and I think why it's a little bit trickier to know is some teams do word titles differently.
Hmm.
And so it may be something that's of a similar nature, but it's not the exact same title. But we could seriously, I mean, we could do an entire episode just not only to talk about what a rock star Jen is, but just to also highlight so many of these other people, like the nutritionists, like the mental health coaches, like the ones who are playing those roles with these guys at the lower levels, kind of helping keep them on track and helping them stay focused. And I think they're extremely underrated, and they definitely deserve a lot more attention.
Yeah, and I'm happy that it's just really fascinating to kind of like hear what these guys go through in different organizations. Who knows where, if I was on the Rockies instead of the Mets, where things would end up. It's really interesting, like from a fan's perspective too, to know that their team does it better or does it worse than others. I think teams really, fans really take pride in like what their team is doing. I know when the Giants raised pay, Giants fans were ecstatic that their team was the first one to, other than the Blue Jays, raise wages early. I think it's really, really interesting to see like the fans' perspective on that as well. When you talk to fans, what do they say about how their team treats the players? Do fans care? Do fans of big league team care? I know the fans of the minor league teams care.
My conversations with the fans, I think, really comes down to how involved the fans are with the organization because like you said, everybody's paying attention at the major league level. Everybody follows that level. But I think the ones who maybe they're a fan of the Detroit Tigers who have been infamously struggling over the last few years. Um, you look at that major league team and right away you're going to have to go, okay, who do we have coming up? Like what does our pipeline look like? What are our options? Please tell me we have something better. It really comes from a place of desperation in some cases. And the Padres are another one. They've been working on a rebuild process for a while, trying to stockpile prospects and utilizing the international market. And I think those are the teams that you're really going to see more of a voice in support of the minor league players because they've done their homework and they have gotten to know some of these guys just from attending the games and kind of seeing how things work. So I think it varies fan base to fan base. And I think at the end of the day, fans want to be proud of their organization. And so if an organization makes a move like that, there's no choice but to be happy. There's no choice but to say, you know what, that's my team. I'm proud to call that my team. Some teams obviously do better than others.
How do you think layoffs, front office staff, contractions, around minor league baseball, and then ultimately COVID, how do you think that affects minor league baseball, the enterprise that is minor league baseball, and also these individual towns and communities that live and die with their team?
I think 2020, and not only for all of us in individual ways, but specifically for minor league baseball, was an absolute gut punch. That's really what a lot of the GMs who I spoke to across the industry, it has absolutely pulled the rug out from some of these organizations. None of them anticipated it would be to the level of severity that it was. And I think something a lot of people don't realize is that a lot of these front offices at the minor league level are very much like a family. A lot of these employees get extremely close. They get to know each other really well. And one of the hardest things one specific GM told me, he goes, is telling these people who absolutely bust their butt during the season, we can't keep you on. We don't have the funds. And the difference between that industry with the majors is that the majors is on a platform that isn't as reliant on attendance because those tickets, that's what's driving these smaller market teams, having people in the seats, having fans in attendance. And the fact that COVID struck the way that it did, it not only impacted spring training and the plans for the minors and all of that stuff, it completely shut things down. And I believe that it could take out multiple organizations who just don't have the private funding to be able to keep functioning. And seeing what a blow it's been to the communities. It's been extremely hard to watch, just to hear the stories, to see how much it's impacted the communities. It really shows you what a special industry it is. And I'm really hoping that next year is maybe a bit of a recuperation period, although a lot of that stuff is still up in the air, and specifically with the plans that Commissioner Manfred has and what's already kind of begun. It's going to be a very different landscape next season.
The contraction of the short season, that was already bound to happen prior to COVID. I think it gave Major League Baseball a really good excuse to cut it. You know, I played at those two levels. I was in those towns. You know, yeah, Mahoning Valley lost their team, and unfortunately, you know, there were a couple hundred people that went to the games. But like, Brooklyn got moved up to short season low A. These towns that lose this, that their teams across the country, where do you think the state of baseball is now? And is it good for Major League Baseball? Is it good for professional baseball if these towns are losing teams?
It's a question that's come up quite a few times over this year, specifically once some of the contraction stuff started to go into effect. And I know the commissioner had some press conferences talking about how they were going to shift some things to, you know, collegiate summer teams and wood bat leagues. And I think one of the biggest factors that wasn't mentioned by him is how personal minor league baseball becomes to fans. And it's a preview. It's a preview for these fans who are so loyal to their organization that, you know, maybe you do live in Fort Wayne, Indiana, you're watching future Padres, you're a big Padres fan, and you're across the country and you're like, this is my only chance to see these guys, this is my only chance to catch baseball. And that side of it, I think you're doing a disservice to properly marketing the game, because you're almost cutting off a limb of accessibility, like you said, to the fans, because some of these ones who, you know, they lived in Billings, Montana, or they live, you know, in Burlington, Iowa, or, you know, just all these little random locations. How far is it going to take for them to drive to a major league park? How expensive is that going to be? I know myself, I grew up in a very large family and we were extremely low income. So the concept of going to a professional sporting event was like Christmas morning. I remember we didn't go to my first Tigers game until I was, I think, 14. And it was just the most incredible experience because we were in a professional sports arena and it was like in another world. And you look at the costs and how costs continue to go up, costs for food, costs for parking, costs for tickets. At the major league level, you're not doing the fans a favor. You're making it more difficult to attend these games. And I think having the tie to minor league baseball, you're giving them a more family friendly, more affordable, more attainable, easier to access point to be able to build your appreciation for the game. And as the front office with the commissioner, wouldn't that be your goal? Wouldn't that be your primary focus, to grow the fan base in all aspects instead of cutting off several limbs here and there to try to save a few dollars? It doesn't make sense in my opinion.
You had mentioned, like, you know, growing up and going to professional sporting events in Phoenix, where I grew up, the only thing to do was a Diamondbacks game, and you know, major league games are way too expensive. You know, it's interesting to see, like, local games are blacked out. You know, I went to bed every night listening to Dodger games because, you know, I couldn't watch the D-back games on my phone. And so it's interesting to see, like, what baseball is doing to market itself to a younger generation. I think minor league baseball is a really interesting kind of segment of that, because when we look at, like, social media and what these kids are doing, you know, Major League Baseball and minor league baseball and these players are having a really hard time marketing themselves because baseball is not sexy anymore, or it's definitely not sexy right now. Do you see things getting better over the next 5-10 years with a generation that is going further and further away from baseball? And how is Major League Baseball going to continue to market itself to to grow and not be an afterthought like some people would argue that it was this year.
Yeah, this year didn't do anybody any favors when it comes to marketing. I think we can agree on that. It created such a challenge for everybody. I think it's ultimately going to come down to what the commissioner and his staff view as a priority. And the frustrating part, in my opinion, has been seemingly a lack of understanding of how valued minor league baseball is. And the proof is really in the numbers. You look at record numbers as far as income every year from the industry, seeing attendance continue to go up, and almost just not seeming to understand how that ties into promoting the game as a whole. And like I said before, I just think it's doing it a disservice, because you can look at improvements from a community perspective. I've talked to teams like across the country that I've traveled to in the minor league circuit, and every one of them said, when we got this team, our economy improved, our crime rate went down, businesses wanted to start coming. And it shows what an impact these teams can make. Granted, some teams have more money accessible than others, so they don't all have the same appeal necessarily, but they bring change, and they bring a positive change. And you can see that in the way that the community responds to it, because at the end of the day, it's baseball, and it's officially, it's professional. It is professional baseball with possible future major league players who are right up there and live and living color. And I think if you pull that away, you're really dealing a blow to the baseball fan base. And I think we're in a time right now where we need to push it more than ever, because I think, like you said, as we continue to move forward, I feel like the game is going to start to suffer even more because it is not being properly marketed.
I'd love to change gears a bit and kind of go into, how and why you got started in this industry, and why not in the front office or on the field, and where your passions lied in being a writer.
Being a writer was always something that I fell back to, just because I was an extremely shy kid. I did not like being with people I didn't know. I didn't like doing things that were uncomfortable or unknown. And the way that I found I communicated and was able to sort of spill out all of my thoughts was through writing. And I had no collegiate training. And I think the fact that I didn't have that degree to fall back on, I always thought, how would I ever do this? How would this ever become a thing? And I remember at one point I thought, I'm never going to know unless I try. And I put myself out there with a local newspaper that I had some friends with. And I just basically talked to the sports editor, and I said, hey, can you tell me if I'm good at this? Just kind of wanted his professional opinion. And long story short, they ended up offering me a weekly spot on the front page of the sports section. And that was really what got the ball rolling, because, like, honestly, I never had aspirations to cover the minors. I wanted to interview Justin Verlander. I wanted to talk to Miguel Cabrera. I wanted to talk to, Max Scherzer, these guys who were larger than life, and everybody wanted their attention. I sort of fell into the minors, which it sounds funny, but my first real baseball assignment came through an opportunity to write with a blog from SB Nation that focused on the Detroit Tigers. I'm located in Grand Rapids, Michigan, so it's made sense for that to be my focus. And my editor at the time, he said, you're in Grand Rapids, which is the home of the Tigers' low A affiliate, the West Michigan Whitecaps. He said, why don't you start to do some minor league stuff? And I kind of went, why? And it wasn't that I was against it, but it was more like, is there stories to tell there? Is that a thing? Will there be anything to talk about? And what it turned into was me realizing how much there was to talk about and how many stories weren't being told. And I think not only being a woman in the industry, there were very few women doing anything in minor league baseball from a journalism perspective. And so I think the time that I sort of began to move into that, I was a bit unusual. And because of that, it sort of drew some interest as far as the stories I was bringing forward and the guys I was talking about. And as it began to gradually develop, I went, you know what? I want to do this from the top down. And I started expanding my reach, traveling to the AAA affiliate. I traveled out to the AA affiliate, went down to Florida for spring training, did some Florida State League stuff, which, if you've never been to the Florida State League in August, it'll change your life, and not in a good way. So that was really what got me started in it. And as I expanded into doing more national coverage, more stories came along, more perspectives came along. And that was when I really began to fully understand there's so much that's not being discussed here. And as I tapped into it more, that sort of cultivated more of that passion to say, we need to speak up about this. We need to be telling these experiences and these stories. And I remember talking to Sean Doolittle for a piece that I wrote a couple of years ago. And he was telling me how entertaining it was trying to return an air mattress that had popped a hole in it and trying to explain the story of how that happened. But he wanted to return it just to try to get some money because they just needed money. And there's so many humorous stories that come out of that. But at the end of the day, it's humor that's masking these guys trying to scrape by. And the fact that they are having to scrape by as professional athletes, I think is really what's woke so many people up and really forced them to become more vocal, and hoping that, Major League Baseball will start to listen.
That's yeah. It's interesting too to hear like a Sean Doolittle, an All-Star World Series winner, like a guy that got a contract, had to, uh, you know, kind of suffer through that like everybody else, right? And some people would say, shut up and dribble, or if you don't like it, play better. But these guys can't. They have no opportunity to, right? There's just no relief when it comes to being at the lower levels. And some guys that make it up just have an opportunity and succeed in that opportunity. Other guys, may or may not have an opportunity. And I think the difference between being a big leaguer and not is, and this is what Ty Kelly told me, is it's like having success in that one fleeting moment where they are interested in you. Right. And that's the difference between making it to the big leagues and not for a majority of guys. It's really interesting. We interviewed about 1,000 guys. We surveyed 1,000 players. We said, what do you think your chances are making the big leagues? And 75% of the players that we surveyed thought they were going to make the big leagues. 75%. Of, in reality, it's less than 10%. And it's just fascinating. Everybody thinks they're going to make it. I thought I was going to make it until, I got injured. And it's interesting to note that, like, how hard it is. It's really interesting to hear your perspective and seeing it from so many different angles. Cause I don't have that experience, and I played 2 years, but you've seen it for years and years, and seeing how it hasn't gotten better. And it's really fascinating to note a guy like Sean Doolittle struggled like the rest of us.
Well, and Sean made a good point too, because he said he received, some ridicule here and there from being a quote unquote bonus baby and having that extra funds. But what I really thought was a good takeaway from what he said is that they all had to ride the same bus. They all had to come up with the same living arrangements. They had to find creative ways to have food available and to pay their clubhouse dues. The bonus was there, but it's still the same lifestyle. And I had one player joke with me. He said, when you're on a road trip and it's the middle of the night and you're on the bus, he goes, it's like playing a game of Twister, just to try not to step on somebody, because you've got guys sleeping on the seats, you've got guys sleeping in the aisle, you've got guys sleeping under the seats. He goes, so there could be a pair of legs there in the dark and you don't know. And he goes, you almost have to do, right hand yellow, left foot red to try and actually get to where you want to go, and then hope nobody's in the bathroom, because you're gonna have to stand there, otherwise climbing over guys to get back to where you were supposed to sit. And that was something that I've heard from, pitchers specifically, I think have stood out the most when it comes to those road trips, because you factor in again the mental aspect of preparation, whether you be a bullpen arm or a starter, how much you have to prepare your body. And if you sleep on an 11-hour bus ride and then you're supposed to start the next day, and you're coming off of, 4 or 5 hours of sleep, that is no way to play your best. That is no way to be at the top of your game. And I think it just shows how much of these guys need to have just a better way to prepare, because you come off a bus, you are dead tired, and it's not the way that these guys should function, especially as a professional athlete.
Mhm. For these guys, for the thousands that have been minor leaguers and will be minor leaguers, what keeps them going is making the big leagues. What keeps you going in all this?
I joked with somebody that to work in baseball, you have to be a little bit crazy,
Yes.
because I think the lifestyle, no matter if you're in the front office or you're pulling tarp during a rain delay, or you're the one who's is riding around the minor league industry, popping in at these different parks and going off of 2 hours of sleep and 7 cups of coffee, you have to be a little bit crazy. And I think we look at it from the perspective of, there really is so much romance when it comes to the game of baseball. There's so many things to hold on to, and so many things that have not changed over the years. That there still is the history and the mystique and the just the stories that have come through so many different names who have played the game. And I think for me, it's just being a part of that, and being a part of the experience, and seeing the ups and downs of the game, and how it doesn't pick favorites. Whether you're a journalist or you're a top prospect, your career can be done in the blink of an eye, whether it be through an injury or an industry cutback, which I saw so many good friends who lost their opportunities this year because of COVID. You don't know how much time you have to do what you do. And it's really quite eye-opening, and I think that makes us all appreciate it that much more, to have the time that we have, and obviously chase this passion that we have. And a bigger thing for me as well, I think, is my role as a woman in the game, which I've grown a lot more passionate about over the last few years, because I've started to get these messages from other young girls, like, coming through college, or they've just started an internship or something along those lines. And the ones who have said, I didn't know I could pursue something like that until I saw, the women who were out ahead and paving those trails, and, setting the standard of saying, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, it matters how much you're willing to invest and how much passion you have for what you do. Because if you invest the work, you have every right to pursue what you love compared to the next person. And the way I look at it from my experience, I hope that the way that I've approached it and the way that I've handled myself is ultimately going to inspire other young women to do the same. Because I think when you accept that, and when you realize what you're capable of, there's no limit to what you can do. And I hope that that pushes more women to pursue roles in baseball, because it's really just the absolute best thing that you could think of.
What's the best thing that you can tell a younger self, or someone coming up through the game, to keep them on that track, either as a woman or as somebody in baseball who goes, man, I really love what Emily Waldon does. I want to be in her position one day.
I think it really comes down to realizing that if you don't want to keep going, there are probably 10 people in line behind you who will gladly pass you by. And it's terrifying, but it's also inspiring, because you look at how competitive the industry is, but you also push yourself to see how much you're capable of. And journalism specifically is such a competitive business that if you're not ready to run this ragged pace, you're going to get left behind. And I think that's um, it's very similar in the game as well, where as a player, as a coach, as a scout, as a front office employee, if you don't have the drive and the passion to stay at the top of whatever your role is, you will get passed by, because baseball will not pick a favorite. Baseball is not going to give you special attention or give you special opportunity. You have to bust your tail. You have to bust your tail to be able to get to where you want to get. And what I'm seeing as a woman in the business and seeing how that's developed, I'm ecstatic because I'm seeing those ceilings shattered for women. I'm seeing firsts in so many different industries, watching Melanie Newman's success with the Orioles, seeing the Giants hiring, I'm going to forget her last name, Alyssa.
Osanakin.
Yes, thank you. Seeing her opportunity, seeing Rachel get a chance with being a hitting coach with the Yankees, and another Rachel getting a chance to be a hitting coach with the Cubs. Seeing all of these girls step up and going, we're doing this because we're passionate about. We're not doing this because we want to say, oh, hey guys, look at me. We love this game. And I think watching the way that they've carried themselves and watching those successes, it's inspiring me to believe that change is headed in a good direction. And my hope is that we'll start to see that same progress in the minor league level as well, in all aspects, from personal to professional, and seeing these guys who are so good at what they do be able to be recognized and rewarded for those efforts.
It's really amazing to see. And I love it. And I love the article that came out in, I don't know if it was it the New York Times that Jen was featured in, and this
Yes.
entire group of women in baseball. It's really wonderful to see. We just brought in to be part of, I guess, this family of podcasts, Shannon Corcoran, who has a podcast called Bat Her Up, and where she only interviews women in baseball, and she just had Hannah Kaiser on, and it's just really cool to see like the powerful voices in baseball that and what y'all are doing as this, you know, this group pushing the game forward. I think the game really needs that, and I hope you know that you're one of a vital piece to that, and I'm really happy we could have you on for sure. But I'm really happy that, you know, this community is so close and so tight and really respects kind of each other. It's really wonderful to hear kind of those stories.
Yeah, no, it's been such an incredible opportunity, and I got kind of emotional talking with a friend about it yesterday. He's a veteran scout at the major league level, and I think you looking back, especially because I think when you're in the midst of it, it all becomes a blur if you're not careful, and it's just a matter of trying to keep your eyes open and trying to keep yourself awake, and you're constantly in the car, you know, or on a plane, or, you know, coming and going. But when I sit back and I look back over the last 6 years, it absolutely blows me away, because I look at the opportunities and the stories and the experiences, and just seeing how much I've gotten to experience with this game that I love so much, and then also getting to see what's been able to happen through me sharing my story, my experiences. It really just comes down to saying, I want people to have the same excitement that I have. And I don't want them to sit there and say, well, I never played baseball in high school, or I never played baseball in college, so how am I qualified? You're qualified if you do the work, because at the end of the day, that's what sets you apart. That's what helps put you on a different level in compared to the competition, because you've applied yourself and you deserve the position and the opportunities that you get. And I hope that that touches a lot of people, whether you're male or female. You do the work, you chase the dream that you have, and you're going to see the fruits of it. You've just got to keep at it, and you're going to start to see results.
Through all of your journey in baseball, what has surprised you the most, either on the field or off the field, either in the locker room or not? You know, what's something that you take a step back and you go, wow, like, I know you just mentioned, you know, how far everybody's come really, but is there something that, you know, the game has taught you, or something that you find surprising in all this?
Um, you know, I think probably one of the more pleasant surprises is how many incredible men that I've had come alongside me in my career in the business, and that it sort of not to say that it's still not a problem of, women not always receiving the best treatment in sports. Obviously, it comes and goes. But I think for me, it was such a pleasant surprise to see how many men stepped in and said, we want to support you. How can we help? Let's get to know you. What can I do to help make your job a little bit easier? And I've tried to make that a part of my message as well, that yes, women do not always receive fair treatment in sports in general, but I don't want that to take away from the guys who have gone out of their way to be respectful, to be supportive, to speak out in support of women in the game. And I could talk for the next hour about how many minor league guys have gone absolutely above and beyond to speak out in support of more women. And that, to me, I think was just so refreshing to see that, because you could see how welcoming they are to change and how much they want to see fair treatment, fair opportunity for everybody. And so I think as a woman, that was something that was really special to me.
I can't thank you enough for being here and doing what you're doing, and, being a voice for change. And it continues to inspire me. I know our group, I know Simon and the rest of More Than Baseball. Really thank you for what you do in baseball. It's really wonderful. And I want to thank you for your time and what you really mean to a lot of us and young girls and the baseball community. So I want to leave you with this though. What is your walk-up song?
Oh my goodness. What is my walk-up song? Oh, I'm going to say there's a song, and now I'm going to blank on it, of course. It's a Nelly song, and I'm blanking on it. This is so bad. But it's one that was actually stuck in my head the other day.
I haven't heard Nelly since my bar mitzvah.
Here Comes the Boom.
By Nelly?
By Nelly.
Done. I'll play it right now.
Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that.
Well, Emily, thank you. I really do appreciate your time and what you're doing, and I hope that we continue to talk more, and one day I hope that we can do one of these podcasts sitting across from each other.
Absolutely. And I can't say enough about you and Simon and the whole team, just watching how much you guys have grown so much, not only in recognition, but just in the work that you're doing. And it's been so much fun to see, not only to watch, but also to support and just cheer you guys on. So thank you for the support of my career, and I am so excited to see where you guys go from here. It's really been cool to see.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thanks again.
I'm feeling it like, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that.
The Grind is a 940 Media production. It's produced by Slade Heathcott, Simon Rosenblum Larson, Chase Darno, and me, Jeremy Wolf. For more information on More Than Baseball, you can follow us at MTB_ORG on Instagram and Twitter, or visit our website, morethanbaseball.org.
Y'all don't really want it, and I can tell just by looking at you that you the type to run and go and tell just by looking at you. You on a mission for recognition by dissing. Didn't have no problem till the record started breaking, but y'all don't really want it. So let me tell you the deal. I'm on so serious, I'm dirty, I'm no longer for real. I'm like a hop, skip, and a jump, a clock grip on the pump. From leaving you in the trunk, somewhere prepared to dump, but y'all don't really want it. So quit acting like you're dead. I'm looking to my right, trying to see who's left. So you better watch it before I stick to the plan and be the next artist to run up in your stand. Like, here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Here comes the, y'all don't shook, man. You ain't built for a skirt as a nigga can be. It's gon' sound like when I'm coming, like when I'm coming, like when I'm coming for ya. It's gon' sound like